From the Southeast Asian capital of the Philippines, Metro Manila. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the best program of its kind in the entire world, ladies and gentlemen. This is Coast to Coast AM. And guess what? Here I am again. I'm Art Bell. It's great to be here. I've got so much to tell you about since the last time we got together. And it is preceded by what is happening today. It's just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. We went through, here in the Philippines, a pretty serious typhoon about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I woke up this morning and said, well, here we are, first day back on the air, right? And I looked out the window and, oh my God, it was raining like crazy and the wind was howling. And I thought, no, we could not be having another typhoon. It can't be happening. Just simply can't be happening. However, guess what? Let me read you this. Synopsis. At 2 a.m. today, Typhoon Glenda, another female, Glenda was located, based on satellite and surface data, at 640 kilometers east of Tuguegarao City. That's 18 degrees north, 128.2 east, with maximum sustained winds of 140 kilometers per hour. And gustiness of up to 170 kilometers per hour. It is forecast to move northwest at 15 kilometers per hour. So in other words, it is east of us, and it is moving northwest. Now, it's really screaming out there, folks. The thunder is going. The wind is absolutely howling. The rain is coming down like crazy. So at the last moment, just before airtime, I took a quick photograph out my window, and that is what is up there right now. So take a look, and what you're seeing is the area directly below the condominium that I'm in here in Manila, and you can see what is normally a little trickling stream is now much more than that. Now beyond that, of course, welcome back, Art. Here's a typhoon, so hopefully we'll keep power here. But above all else, other than the typhoon, I want to thank a lot of people. This has been a very long time in coming. In other words, getting back on the air in some kind of professional manner. We are now using an ISDN line, and I'd like to thank, there are so many. Craig Kitchen, the president of Premier Radio Networks, thank you, Craig, for being such a good friend through all of this. The entire crew, Tom Danheiser, there's so many, and I want to thank Bill. Bill, thank you very much. So many people that are responsible for getting this done. And to give you some idea, the original concept before I came to the Philippines was to order ahead of time an ISDN line, have it ready so that we'd be on the air pretty quickly. Well, turns out that the phone company here has no idea how to deal with a foreign entity. And so I actually had to order the ISDN line myself and paid about a year in advance. And it finally got put in. And with the patience, the help of so many, many people at Premier Radio Networks, we have it done. And hopefully, even through Typhoon Glenda, I should sound to you right now, as long as power lasts, as I would normally sound. But to have a typhoon on the very first day that I get back is astounding. Again, Typhoon Glenda, and she's really screaming out there. In fact, if it gets really rough, you may be able to hear some of the thunder and screaming in the background. I don't know. Anyway, here we are. All right, let me update you on a few things before we do a break. Number one, everybody is asking, yes, my cats made it over here in great style. In fact, my cats flew first class. First class. Now, even I did not, I've got the money, I can fly first class. But I never do. It is just so much more expensive to do so. So I did not. I flew coach, and I had a little plan. I slept most of the way. As a matter of fact, on one of the trips back from Manila to the U.S., I got on the airplane, had, about an hour out, I guess we had a meal. And after the meal, I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was about to land in Canada. So there you have it. I slept all the way through the flight. That's my plan. Now, I figure for several $1,000s more, and since I'm going to sleep all the way, why the heck go first class, right? But my cats, they came first class, baby, I'll tell you. They had flight attendants caring for them, and their passage was roughly twice my passage. But thank God they made it with no problem. They seem happy. They really, really like it here. Yeti and Abydos, of course, are very, very close friends. And they've been running around the condo, spreading their fur everywhere they go. So here they are. They're fine. Cat's fine. Let's see, what other updates might I have for you? I was going to tell you that we had a typhoon, but here I am telling you we're in a typhoon right now. In addition to that, the entire Ring of Fire appears to be alive, and we have a volcano here on the island south of me that is currently ejecting lava and large rocks and spitting and getting to the point where it's really going to let go. It's a Mayan volcano on Luzon to the south of us here. And I've been trying to talk Aaron into a trip down there. I want to see the Mayan volcano. I really want to see it. I've got some pretty good cameras, as you know, and taking pictures of a volcano, particularly one that's really about to go, appeals to me. Now, it doesn't seem to appeal to Aaron to quite the same degree that it does to me, but we may well do that. And speaking of Aaron, by the way, very quickly, I did send Lex, bless his heart, a photograph of Aaron that I really love. She showed it to me the other day, and I said, oh, God, that's really beautiful. It's Aaron when she was 12 years old, and she was doing a dance at a festival in Bukidnon province, down on Mindanao, and there you have it. That's Aaron at age 12 doing a native dance, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful, so I sent it to the webmaster, and thank you, Sean. He got it put up. Now, as you know, I am in the process of quitting smoking. Now, many are asking me, how's that going? Well, here's an update. I would say that I am smoking perhaps 1/10. You know, I was a chain smoker at home, one after another, after another, after another. And there are certain keys when you smoke, you know, like after you have a meal, you automatically, you know, a meal is connected to a cigarette. A cup of coffee is connected to a cigarette. Other things, as you well know, are connected to a cigarette. So at home, it was getting to the point where cigarettes were so damn expensive that, well, you know, I was going to quit anyway, eventually. But over here, I'm confined to what's called the comfort room, otherwise dubbed a bathroom in the United States. And then I get here and I find out cigarettes here in the Philippines, brace yourself, are about 28 pesos a pack. Now, the current exchange rate between the peso and the dollar is about 52. So in other words, at 28 pesos a pack, cigarettes here, and by the way, I'm speaking now of American cigarettes, either imported or made here. Either way, American cigarettes, licensed and made here or there, imported from the U.S., are about 28 pesos a pack. That makes them just a hair over 50 cents a pack. And that should give you some idea of the difference in the cost of living between here and there. Oh, one other thing. I'm not dead. There is an internet rumor apparently going around that I am dead. At least not yet, folks. Not yet. And the rest of us seem to be hanging in there, despite the typhoons and all the rest of the fires and the terrible things going on in the U.S. As a matter of fact, Newt Gingrich, I thought, had created the headline of the week. I was watching Fox the other day and referring to what's going on between Israel and Lebanon. He said we're in the early stages of World War III. And that one stopped me cold. The early stages of World War III. On that note, in a moment, we will continue with this broadcast, typhoon allowing, and we will we'll talk a little bit about what may be the early stages of World War III. We'll be right back. Repeating for effect, I am not dead. There is an internet rumor going around, and by the way, a very good friend of mine, also named Art, did pass away, and I would assume that the internet rumors are as a result of that, and certainly very sorry to hear that occurred. Looking very briefly, because there's lots of other news to talk about, but it's impossible not to touch upon this, the Israeli Hezbollah Lebanon situation. Israeli tanks, bulldozers, and armored personnel carriers knocked down a fence and then barreled right over the Lebanese border Saturday as forces seized a village from the Hezbollah guerrilla group. The soldiers battled militants throughout the day, raided the large village close by in several waves before finally taking control. Tens of thousands of Lebanese fleeing north, you can imagine why, packed into the port of Sidon to escape the fighting, as the UN warned of a growing humanitarian disaster. And I hope not a growing war, as Speaker Gingrich suggested at the beginning of World War III. My God, Hezbollah leaders acknowledge that Israeli troops can sweep across South Lebanon, but if he and his militants can survive and keep fighting, he will cement his image as the unlikely new hero of Arab nationalism. In other words, a lot of people are suggesting that if Hezbollah survives, mainly intact after all of this, they win no matter what. And while we're on the subject of war, because what is the phrase, I think, in newspapers? If it bleeds, it leads. North Korea, it seems, has launched a wartime alert, putting its armed forces and nationals in a state of war mobilization. This is just great, right? It's an unconfirmed news report, all of this through Agency France. Kim Jong, head of the communist country, issued an order to that effect hours before the UN Security Council unanimously condemned North Korea's missile test last week. North Korean soldiers were on leave, told to return to their barracks. Camouflage nettings were being draped on military vehicles and weapons. People were prohibited from entering the countryside. The alert was not issued publicly, but apparently spread quietly through military and civilian emergency networks. Now, that's very unlike the North Koreans. Usually when they're going to bluster, they bluster publicly, not privately. So when it's privately, there perhaps is a little bit of a reason for concern. And then, of course, the Mideast, where the Bible tells us it will all end, where it all began and it will all end. Officials say now that about 600 people, more than 600 people, were killed by Monday's tsunami, another thing going on over here, that swept through fishing villages and resorts on Indonesia's Java Island. More than 200 others still missing. 54,000 more than have been displaced. There was no warning. No warning. Again, before the wave struck on Monday, despite efforts to set up a warning system after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami left 230,000 dead or missing, including 170,000 in Indonesia. But many residents and tourists on the southern Java coast recognized the signs. They fled to higher ground as the sea receded. That must be one eerie sight, to be looking at the ocean and see the ocean begin to recede and continue to recede until huge waves came crashing ashore. When they came, one eyewitness said, I heard people screaming. Then I heard something like a plane about to crash nearby, and I simply ran. Well, apparently not enough people ran. The last 2 decades of the 20th century were the hottest in 400 years, and quite likely the warmest for several millennia, according to U.S. a scientific body which comes to that conclusion in a new report. The National Academy's National Research Council also said human activities are responsible for much of the global warming. Now, I don't go that far. I don't know that I would say conclusively that all of this is due to human action. I think it's entirely possible that it's part of a natural cycle. However, it's also possible we've got something to do with it. Now, scientists worldwide are also watching temperatures. I'm sure you are. watching them rise. They're watching the land turn dry, vast forests going up in flames. In the Siberian mountains, the Canadian Rockies, in Southern California and Australia, researchers find growing evidence of tying an upsurge in wildfires to climate change, an impact long predicted by global warming forecasters. I know I hear a lot of people going, oh, man, global warming. A team at California Scripps Institution, in a headline-making report this month, found that warmer temperatures causing earlier snow runoff and consequently drier summer conditions were the key factor in an explosion of big wildfires in the U.S. West over the last 3 decades, including fires now rampaging east of Los Angeles. So certainly that is continuing to go on. And I do believe that it is a product of global warming. Don't you? Isn't it obvious to everybody now that the temperatures indeed worldwide are rising, and it's going to cause all kinds of problems, fires included? Also, the world faces a major crisis as growing numbers of animals and plants simply disappear. This all from a blue ribbon panel of scientific experts saying virtually all aspects of biodiversity are in steep, these are their words, steep decline, and a large number of populations and species are likely to become extinct in this century, according to a report in the British journal Nature, the very well-respected British journal Nature. The issue, said Robert Watson, the chief scientist and one of 19 experts from 13 countries, including Canada, who endorsed the report, a risk of a whole range of services that simply we may not be aware of, though they're essential for human survival. Things like food, medicines, fiber for construction, clothing, as well as purification of air and water, climate regulation, control of pests and diseases. All of this going on. Get this, folks. And I don't really mean to be on the negative side of things, but you've got to read what's there. I mean, you've got to consider what's really in the news worldwide. A third of all the male fish in English rivers are now in the process of changing sex due to what they call gender-bending pollution. Gender-bending pollution. Experts say that female hormones from the contraceptive pill and HRT apparently are washing into our rivers and causing male fish to produce eggs. That's right, eggs. The problem, which is countrywide, has raised fears that the pollutants could also be contaminating our drinking water, even affecting the fertility of men. The Environment Agency study looked at the health of more than 1,600 roach found in 51 rivers and streams around the country. Overall, get this, about a third of the male fish were in between sexes. However, in one waterway near a particularly heavy discharge of treated sewage, this should tell you why it's happening, more than 80% had female characteristics. Tests showed the males developed female sex organs and were indeed producing eggs. Such fish also produce less sperm, and the sperm that is produced is of low quality. Females may also be affected, producing abnormal eggs. Previous studies have shown that cod, trout, and flounder are all being feminized. So there you have it. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the various conflicts either threatening to erupt around the world or presently erupting. People like Newt Gingrich saying we're at the first stages of World War III. And you look at the condition of the globe, and it's all, frankly, kind of worrisome, I would say, wouldn't you? I would be interested in, by the way, you can email me either with stories that you feel ought to be on the air, which I certainly would appreciate, or with any comments about all of this. But I'm not making it up. All of these stories are coming to me through normal channels, many of them from Europe. A lot of them are not published in the United States because it's just not politically correct to be talking about this kind of thing. But as you know, I've been boring in and talking about this kind of thing for a long time. And unfortunately, what I did write in my book and then was later translated reasonably accurately into a movie, yes, with some science fiction aspect to it. All of it appears to be coming true. And I don't want that to happen, but I can feel in every fiber of my body that it is coming true. So it's in the air, it's in the water, and it's in all of us. When I say all of us, I refer, of course, to the inevitable. We are a warrior people, even Americans. We're all warrior-like people, aren't we? It's I see they picked for me Riders on the Storm. We've got a typhoon. Glenda, she is, screaming across Luzon here in the Philippines. I'm Art Bell from, I almost said from the high desert. That's going to be hard to control, but indeed from the Philippine Islands, 7,000, I believe it is, 107. Is it 7,100? Yeah, 7,107 islands, or maybe it's 207 islands, a lot of islands. I'm Art Bell. We'll be right back. That's exactly where I'm from, Manila, Philippines, where we have Typhoon Glenda raging away outside. This is kind of an interesting stat to note. In the August 2006 issue of Popular Science, they do come out early, on page 40, you will note that 20% of the human genome has been patented. They're actually patenting everything that is us. Can you imagine that? Patenting us. That's right. In fact, 53% of 122 laboratories surveyed said they did not perform a genetic test, get this, because of the specter of patent enforcements and royalty fees. In other words, they're concerned about some sort of infringement on somebody's patent of us. We are going to take open line calls for about the next 30 minutes or so. In a moment. Once again, from the opposite side of the world, and that is exactly where I am, here in Southeast Asia. Hi, everybody. The miracle, the magic and the miracle of radio never, I think for the rest of my life, will never, ever cease to amaze me. But the fact that we got this done, once again, Craig Kitchen, the president of Premier, I want to thank you. William Hickey, Bill Hickey, the technical guy, Tom Danheiser, Trevor Oliver. I don't know. There are so many people to thank for getting this done. You've got to admit, it really is amazing, isn't it? I mean, the audio quality that we're able to get through a typhoon, mind you, from one side of the world to the other, is simply astounding. Now, let's do a test and see if we can actually answer phone lines from here. By the way, I can do that. Now, how's that for an extra little bit of amazement? I can pick up phone lines from right here. Let me give it a try. Wildcard line, you are on the air. I think you're on the air.
How you doing, Art?
I'm doing quite well. You are on the air. My God, it works.
Hey, it did work, didn't it?
It sure did. Where are you, sir?
I'm in Columbus, Georgia, Art. This is your buddy Steven, your fireworks buddy.
Hey there.
Did you get a chance to see any fireworks over the 4th?
Now, just as a matter of interest, my friend, the 4th of July is not exactly celebrated here. They've got Independence Day here, but it's about 2 weeks earlier than our Independence Day, and they celebrate independence from us.
Okay.
For the record.
All righty. Well, at any rate, you know where you're at. You can buy the Class B stuff right over the counter there in Manila.
I can?
You sure can. You can buy better
I didn't know that.
Here in the States.
Uh-huh. You do have your radio turned off, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I haven't seen any fireworks for sale here.
Wow.
Occasionally what they call a bomb goes off, but it's more like a cherry bomb.
Well, I'm sure you can get those over there also. Artie, it was good speaking with you, and sir, I'm very glad you're happy and doing well.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Take care. As a matter of fact, what I found out is that I really can get just about just about anything here that I can get in the States. Let's see, how do I want to put that? Anything available in the States is certainly available here as well. Let me try east of the Rockies. You are on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. I'm glad to hear that you're okay.
I'm all right, sir. Outside, it's raging. We're in the middle of a typhoon, but by God, here I am.
I don't believe that parallel universes exist, but for years, or at least for a while, I have to be wondering if they do, because I feel like the one that I'm living in is basically insane. I mean, I read an article about I think it was alligators or crocodiles. I forget which. I'm ashamed to not know. In a basically pristine area where they turned over these young creatures and they couldn't tell what gender they were looking at.
There's a lot of that going on.
And the use of depleted uranium ammunition, which I understand is radioactive, is being used by the United States on various battlefields, Afghanistan and Iraq.
Oh,
and
sure.
some people think that it's causing birth defects, which happens on both sides of the conflict. And for people to allow this it's like I think I'm dealing with people that have just basically shut down.
Well, I said it toward the bottom of the hour. We are a warrior people. I mean, if an alien civilization were to look down upon us, there's absolutely no question about it. We're a warrior people, the world's people, not just the U.S., although we probably lead the pack. But we certainly are a warlike people. I wonder if that actually will ever end.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, I think that some war is just, but not in all cases. I'm a Christian, and I'm trying to talk sense to some people. Christians, my concept of a Christian is basically one who's open to the truth and has a certain sense of justice and right and wrong. And I'm trying to talk sense to some people, and it's almost like I'm speaking to a brick wall. I don't like the universe that I'm living in right now. I'd like to leave if I can somehow.
Well, our best scientific minds are working on exactly that. So perhaps one of these days we'll be able to do that. Several of the very best minds we have in the world, including that of Dr. Michio Kaku, have said that for the human race to survive, and he's very serious about this, we may indeed have to go to another planet or indeed another universe. As you know, he presently believes there may be as many as 11 parallel universes, and we may need to escape to one of those if we're going to survive. But one wonders, even if we got the technology to do that, would we have socially progressed to the degree that once we got to this new universe, we would not do to it what we have done to our little portion of this one west of the Rockies? You're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Art.
Hello.
I got a little prediction statement that I'd like to put out about 2008 and 11/11, if I may.
You may indeed.
Okay. Well, a lot of people are the perception that the rapture will take place before this tribulation. But
yeah, I know it worries me. If you believe that there's going to be a rapture that's going to whisk you away before the very worst of what may be coming comes, then you're liable not to be as proactive in trying to prevent its occurrence.
Right. Although a lot of people, it's hard to sway prophecy as it's going to be played out.
It may be impossible.
Yeah, as some people are trying to do by the point of the sword, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
But in reference to 11/11, I believe since Lucifer always wanted to be like God, then in the end, God's going to allow him to come first to play God, to weed out certain people that may follow him.
Yeah. So it is written, right?
Right. And I believe that the false Christ will appear in 2008 after a period of international chaos, followed in 11/11, which is not the day and the hour, but it's the month and the year, November 2011.
So you don't know the exact time, but you think you've got the rough time nailed down, right?
Well, it says that there'll be signs in the heavens and the skies, and a lot of this is tied into chemtrails also. Well, there'll be signs in the heavens and the skies, and actually when the Antichrist appears, it's a one-world political religious system, just children of the devil, if you will.
Actually, while we're on the subject, sir, of chemtrails, thank you, I would like to get some emails from folks. I've received sort of a pile of emails recently indicating that the chemtrails that people have been seeing are not presently being seen anymore. Now, I have no way of knowing, of course, all the way over here in Southeast Asia in the middle of a typhoon, whether that is true or not. But if it is true, I would like to know, has there been recently an absence of chemtrails in the skies over the various parts of the U.S.? And if so, I wonder, like everybody else, I guess, because I cannot know what it means. Let's go to the first-time caller line and say, hello there, you are on the air.
Hello, Art Bell.
Hi.
Hi, this is Richard. I'm calling from Fort Irwin, California.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Training Center. Hey, I'm just shocked that I got through to you here. I tried calling so many times when George Nuri's doing the program, and it's being done from somewhere here in the United States. And now that you're across the world, I finally get through.
Can you imagine that? I mean, again, to me, the whole prospect of being on the air from Southeast Asia, and I really am I'm on the other side of the world, very close to the equator. Satellite dishes here point almost straight up, buddy.
Right, and your voice is crystal clear.
Good.
I mean, it's like, I mean, you're like right next door to me talking. But anyway, I just wondered if maybe you could get somebody on the show or talk something about this new Gospel of Judas, that the manuscripts that were found back in.
Help me out here. Help me out here. I had heard about this, the new Gospel of Judas. I'd heard about the Gospel of Judas, but I didn't get an opportunity to actually hear what it was. I tried to catch the program and I missed it. Can you give me a rough idea of what the new Gospel of Judas is?
Sure. I just checked the book library. I'm just about to start reading it. But what I know right now, prior to reading the book, back somewhere in the late 70s or mid-70s, somewhere, I don't know, probably over there in Egypt or Syria or Iran or who knows where, somebody found some new manuscripts, okay, or some type of writings they found.
Right. I've got all that, sir. But what was the gist of it?
Well, the gist of it is that it's casting a whole new light on who Judas was, and not really portraying him as the betrayer that we've all learned, growing up, reading the Bible, that he was, motivated by greed, and that was the only reason why he betrayed Jesus, and sold him out. But from what I've heard the little bits prior to reading this book is that he actually was selected by Jesus, and Jesus told him, hey, this is something that you're going to have to do. He's one of the disciples, and it's making it sound
the only thing that bothers me, thank you very much, about all of that, that Jesus would have selected or foretold or given word to Judas the role that he was about to play worries me, because it kind of indicates that we're all puppets, and that a puppeteer is yanking our strings, and everything is predestined. And once you accept that, it's kind of depressing if you really do accept that everybody's role, what they will do in life, is predestined. It's a great argument, I suppose, with free will, or creates a great big argument with those who believe in free will. I recently saw the movie, once again, The Devil's Advocate. I wonder how many of you remember that, in which there was a line about free will. It's a bitch, ain't it? Free will is a bitch. Well, I wonder if there really is free will, or if in the larger picture, one more string is just yanked upon a little bit, and everything unfolds the way it was intended originally to unfold. I don't know. Wildcard line, you are on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Tim from L.A., and welcome back home.
Hey, buddy.
Hey. The reason why I'm calling is because, you were talking about all these weather changes and what's happening in the environment and everything. My question is, what can I do? What can we do to survive, to live through this? Because I got my food stocked up because I live in L.A. because of earthquakes, and I have my guns and my weapons. my animals. But what else can I do, or what else can we do to survive?
Tim, I don't have the answer to that. I honestly don't have the answer, and I'm asking the same question myself. What can any of us do? It may well be that it'll come down to some sort of mass mental intervention by all of us to stop what otherwise is inevitably going to occur. Because I believe that mass consciousness, and we'll be talking about that tomorrow night, may be the only way out, buddy.
But you said you're against it, though, right?
I beg your pardon?
You're against mass consciousness? I thought you were against it.
Let me clarify that a little bit, okay? I'm not against the concept of mass consciousness. In fact, I sort of started the trend on the radio. I don't think anybody had ever done it previously, of beginning some experiments that I thought went a little far on my part with regard to mass consciousness. We did, 9 or 10 of them? I think 9. And every single last one of them was successful, whether it was bringing rain to areas that had not previously had rain, changing the weather in some way, or affecting somebody's health in a positive manner. Now, all I said was, and I reiterate now, that I'm a little bit afraid of the power. I don't understand the power. If I can get millions of you to concentrate on something, some single large event, and have it occur, certainly that is undeniably a gigantic power. Having done it 9 times in a row successfully, one could begin to believe that it's real, and I did, and I do. Now, I'm not going to toy with it, and I mean toy with it, as in diverting, for example, a typhoon or a hurricane or something of that magnitude. However, if we're looking, as Newt Gingrich would suggest, at the beginning of the end of everything, the beginning stages of World War III, if something of that magnitude occurred, I think I once told you on the air that I would be here to talk in the last moments. If some giant rock was headed toward Earth or something else that was going to be life-ending, I'd be here to talk us through it, and I guess I'm going to be. It certainly looks as though I might be, or perhaps not. I hope the answer really is not. But would I use it? Would I use it? Yes, I would, of course. At the last moment, or nearing the last moment, to prevent the inevitable, you bet I would use it. I hope that in some way answers your question. On yet another wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello, Art.
Yes, sir.
Jim in Hollywood, California.
Art in Manila, the Philippines.
Hi.
Glad to meet you.
I remember a occasion a couple of years ago, give or take, where Mr. Gilliand was interviewed, and he talked about some very interesting technology he believed would be available sometime in the future,
right? As
do other guests. And whether it's interesting conversations with people or things you might read in books or on the internet, it seems like a common fear amongst people who claim to have very interesting stuff is they're afraid that they might not actually live to see that it be used.
Right.
And I was thinking a little bit about how one could actually see things get out and still and actually live to see it happen. And that is, there's a model in pretty much all the businesses that we see. The technology of building a car, the technology of building a house, of building a radio. Virtually anyone could build such a thing from scratch, but we all choose not to, or nearly all of us choose not to. And if someone were to publish, hey, this is how the really neat stuff works. Here's what it does. Here's even plans to build it. Most people will still choose to buy it from someone who can provide it to them in a finished, manufactured form. So you protect yourself with the secret is out, there's no point in killing you, and you can still make a bundle as being one of the frontline manufacturers of whatever this interesting device is. What do you think?
Well, we're not getting as many interesting new devices as we once were. One of the things that I advertised that is interesting and new, and I'm just not giving it a plug, I'm saying this because I think it's absolutely fascinating, is this Wi-Fi radio, Sea Crane's Wi-Fi radio. I've got one here in the Philippines, and it simply uses your Wi-Fi connection, or any Wi-Fi connection, really, in order to bring about 4,000 radio stations into your home. As the commercial said, from Zimbabwe to the Philippines to Australia to, baby, you name it. It's simply amazing. It's simply amazing. So that's one of those new gadgets. And yes, as the caller suggested, we probably not getting enough of these new gadgets. That simply is one of them. I'm a gadget guy, and I know many of you are gadget guys out there. I love a new gadget. High definition, for example. It'll be here very shortly, and I will get my hands on one as soon as I can. But are we getting enough really new, good, fantastic gadgets? Not really. Not as many as we used to. Maybe the pace of everything has slowed down a little bit. Anyway, listen, coming up, as mentioned just a few moments ago, James Gilliland. He's an amazing guy. He's done some amazing things. It's all about UFOs. Believe me, it's all about UFOs and NDEs. And it's coming up next on Coast to Coast AM from Southeast Asia, Manila, the Philippines. I'm Art Bell. It certainly is. From Southeast Asia, actually Manila in the Philippines, believe it or not, we have a very secure connection right now. The only thing that threatens us at this hour is a typhoon. We're in the middle of a typhoon. Honestly, folks, we're in the middle of a big typhoon. I looked out the window here a few moments ago, and there was nothing to see except wind-driven rain going sideways. And the little stream outside is now becoming a raging river. So here we are on the air, first time back in quite a while, something I cannot tell you how pleased I am about. However, power is, the power's probably threatened a little bit. It is absolutely raging out there. Typhoons are interesting. They actually become larger than hurricanes, and the reason for that is because they travel generally all the way across the Pacific. They're usually born off the Mexican coast and then move out across the Pacific. This is Typhoon Glenda, yet another female, and so we're expecting, in fact, we're getting, the picture I took, if you go up to coasttocoastam.com, click on Art's webcam, that was a moment when you could actually see something outside. When I simply went back there a moment ago, Aaron and I looked out the window, and you could see nothing. Just wind-driven, sideways rain. So we're in the middle of a real whoop-de-doo typhoon. In a moment, we've got another kind of a typhoon for you. James Gilliland, who probably knows more about UFOs right now than nearly anybody else on the planet. I say that because he has seen so many of them. He is an internationally known speaker, minister, visionary, author of 2 books, Reunion with Source and Becoming God's 2. He is the director of the Self-Mastery Earth Institute, SETI, Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence after a near-death experience. That's key. He returned with what he refers to as an interdimensional mind, or the ability to move beyond the body, a personality, in other words, into other planes and dimensions throughout the multiverse. Sounds pretty wild. Now, this includes the ability to experience different timelines and future probabilities. He's dedicated to the awakening of humanity. That's all of us. We can certainly use it. And the Earth, as well as researching and ushering in new healing and Earth-friendly technologies. Now, a lot of times I would read something like this, and I'd say it sounds kind of foo-foo to me. But the last time I interviewed James, I think it was for 1 hour, he totally blew my mind. Now, what you should bear in mind is that even after reading what I just read to you, even though it sounds a little foo-foo, right, it's not. There have been countless people who have witnessed what James sees. If this was just James saying, I see this and I see that, or I photographed this or that. And by the way, you can see some of the photographs up on Coast to Coast AM right now. They're very, very impressive of UFOs. If it was just James, or even just photographs, one might suggest, well, photographs can be manipulated. But witness after witness after witness has agreed and has vouched for what James sees on a regular basis. In a moment, James Gilliland. The last time that James Gilliland was on the program with me, he absolutely blew me away. It was, I think, a 1 hour, sort of before the main interview kind of show, and he totally blew me away. And I was sitting there saying, I wish he was on for the whole darn program. Well, that's what we're going to have tonight. I want to read something very quickly and get his reaction to it, because this completely blew me away. It's entitled, SETI Makes Alien Contact. And, of course, it's not James. It's Dr. Greer. But, my God, listen to this. According to Dr. Stephen Greer, yes, SETI has received multiple extraterrestrial signals. This news, he says, is confirmed by senior employees within the SETI program. Now, I'm not confirming any of this for you right now. I'm just reading what I've got. This is what Dr. Greer had to say at a recent Exopolitics conference. Quote, "We have confirmation, and I'm not going to give the name yet because we're trying to coax this guy out of the closet, but one of the senior people in the SETI project, which is the Carl Sagan Search for Extraterrestrial Project, has confirmed to the Disclosure Project that they have received multiple extraterrestrial signals," said Greer, but that now they are getting external human, probably NRO or NSA jamming of those signals, and they're getting very frustrated. Greer continued, "The question is, why hasn't the SETI project, funded by Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, come forward with the information? I'm a little confused even mentioning this, except for the fact that the public needs to know that this effort, which has received a great deal of mainstream media attention, has actually confirmed to us from 2 inside sources that they've received extraterrestrial signals and have confirmed them as being extraterrestrial, and that they've become increasing in frequency and number." I mean, this is gigantic. Dr. Greer, the head of the Disclosure Project, a nonprofit organization with almost now 500 former military, intelligence, and government employees who go on record about their various experiences with alien and alien technology. Since the National Press Conference of 2001, remember that? Viewed by millions of people across the globe, we carried it. Stephen Greer has been referred to as the authority on the truth about extraterrestrials. For Greer to come out and make a statement of this magnitude, something is definitely up. We'll wait patiently to see whether or not these SETI insiders take the stage and become whistleblowers for this monumental secret. Now, I'd very much like to get the reaction of James Gilliland to that. So, James, hey, buddy, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show again.
Happy to have you. Had you heard what I just read?
Yes, I have.
Reaction, please.
Well, my only question is, how come Paul Allen isn't coming up here? We're right in his backyard. We can show him all the UFOs he wants to see, and he can film them himself and take the experience home with him. But, quite a while ago, I emailed all of the people on the board of directors of SETI, and I offered, I gave them a challenge. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll lay out all of my evidence on the table.
Now, do you mean SETI or do you mean SETI?
No, SETI.
SETI, okay.
And I said, it was called the SETI Challenge, and I said, I'll lay all of my evidence out on the table, and you lay all of your evidence out on the table, and whoever has the best evidence walks away with the funding. And and all of the evidence goes to the public afterwards. And nobody took me up on that. And I sent emails to all the directors, and I said, why don't you come to the ranch and see this for yourself, document it yourself, film it yourself. Right. And I actually received some emails from some people on the inside with SETI, and they said, we totally commend your work. We know you're on the up and up, but do not try to get it through our program here, because they said basically we're under government constraints. Anything concerning UFOs has to go through national security, and it's locked up there. Same with NASA.
Right. Now, let me stop you for just 1 second. When I interview, for example, Seth Shostak from SETI, And I've done it a number of times. We inevitably get to the point in the conversation where I say, come on, Seth, if something is really received, if something really comes down, are we going to hear about it? Or, is it going to sort of get locked up and bogged down in the government before we ever get our hands on it? And he always said, oh, no. Look, everything's so open these days. We've got the Internet. I guarantee it's going to be flashed across the Internet before we can even call the first government guy. Do you believe that?
Not at all. It's the information concerning UFOs has a higher, security clearance than nuclear arms. So they've got it very, very locked down, and there's all kinds of people in NASA and SETI both that are starting to blow the whistle on this, and Stephen Greer's doing some great work in this area, and I've heard too as well from some other sources that I know of that they've had about enough, and they're about ready to blow the whistle on this whole cover-up.
No kidding. You just said that the whole UFO thing has got a higher security clearance than, for example, our nuclear program or nuclear whatever. Can you actually prove that?
Just from the sources that I've talked to, I know there is documentation. There's people like Greer and what's the person that runs the Black Vault? He's got all kinds of documentation.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know why his name is slipping my mind right now, but we've had him up here at a conference, and he showed all kinds of documentation. That's kind of not my forte. I'm more into documenting the UFOs themselves and the ongoing contact here.
Boy, you sure as hell have done that. I mean, witness after witness after witness. The last time I had you on the program, you totally blew me away. Your introduction, when you're a minister and a visionary and author of a couple of books, it's a little foo-foo-y to me. Mm-hmm. Kind of, maybe that's the wrong way to put it, foo-foo-y. But, it kind of new agey. Let me put it that way. But you're really into the hardware side of this. I mean, the actual sightings, and you put together witnesses who absolutely confirm. I mean, I think we've had what? How many witnesses have you brought forth that have absolutely, right down the line, confirmed what you have said?
We stopped counting at around 3,000 as far as documented witnesses, and these are top physicists on the planet. And I work with these guys. These are very grounded nuts and bolters, and like the aerospace engineers we brought on the show last time, it totally changed their life. They wanted to see it for themselves. They're very scientific about it, but they could not argue the fact that they took pictures of metallic craft, hovering in the air, and they also saw enormous light ships power up and fly right over us and then park.
Yeah, I can't argue about that either. I mean, I heard the testimony. It's true. So let's back up a little bit. Having established your credibility in this way, let's back up a little bit and find out how this began. You had an NDE. Now, that alone, the fact that the near-death experience began all of this immediately suggests to me that we might be dealing with something other than, let's see how to put this, something other than just somebody from somewhere else coming through real time and space to get here. That we might be dealing with dimensional beings. We might be dealing with, I don't have words for this. Something other than Mars attacks.
Yes, I can help you out with that.
Please do.
Yeah, what my understanding of it is that there's a vibrational continuum, and you mentioned Michio Kaku. He talked a lot about this. He said we might be looking in the wrong area when we're looking, for the physical presence of these ships. We need to be looking in the other dimensions. And, the superstring theory, all of these other latest breakthroughs are proving that there's at least 11 dimensions, and it's actually infinite. There's much more out there. But when we understand ourselves to be a multidimensional being, that we're not just a physical body and a personality, that we're actually a spirit that has a body and a personality, and we also have an energy body, and we have a magnetized light body, and we have another body that's pure consciousness as we expand, throughout the vibrational continuum. Well, the ships are just the same, and there's ships that are physical, they're nuts and bolts, and we have a lot of photographs of those. And then they have ships that are just pure energy. And then some of the ships are magnetized light ships, and some ships are like a Merkabah. They're a collective consciousness, you might say. So when we understand the vibrational continuum, then we understand more of this UFO enigma and what it's all about.
All right. Well, I get a lot of course, I've got Fast Blast in front of me, and I have people who would give their right arm to see a UFO. They've never seen a UFO. And here's James Gilliland, who sees them on a regular basis. And all of this began with your NDE, and it's undeniable because of the witnesses. So I really do want to know about this. Tell me about, if you would please, the NDE. I've got to understand how this began and why it's continuing.
You know, to answer your first question, you're talking about people would give their right arm to come up here. We're having a major conference up here. It's the Science, Spirit, and World Transformation Conference, and it's August 18th. And we have a lot of the speakers you've had on your show. Dr. Nick Bajik, Michal Ledwith with What the Bleep is going to be here, David Sarita, that did, the Dan Aykroyd Unplugged, and Neil Freer, and Michael Sala, right, and Alfred Webre. All of these people are coming up and speaking here, and most of them are coming up not so much to speak as they want to see for themselves.
All right. Is this also open to the general public, or is that a little much?
It is. Actually, we have people out there right now screaming and hollering because the ships are coming in as we speak.
As we speak? You mean right now?
Right now.
Right now?
Right now. They're flying in right now, and they're filming them, and they're hollering and hooting out there, and they've got lasers, and they're responding to the ships. And
oh, but if this were television, I don't frequently wish for that because I don't like TV that much, but my God, I would love to see it right. If it's happening right now, I'd really love to see it.
We're very close to having a live video cam up here. We've got most of the equipment, and we're going to have it set up full time. And
boy, is that a good idea! Yikes!
Exactly, they can just click on and see the ships.
I think I just heard somebody holler in the background. Did I?
That was a coyote.
A coyote, okay. Coyote, yeah. All right. All right, back. Even with this going on, take me back to your NDE. What happened to you? What kind of near-death experience did you have? Because obviously it's connected.
It is. It's definitely connected. I had a drowning, and I was out body surfing, and the waves were, maybe 6 to 8 feet tall, and as a kid, I was captain of the water polo team, and a very avid swimmer. I was on the swim team, and I felt myself bulletproof until, these sneaker waves came in, like these little mini tsunamis, and pretty much took everybody out there on the docks that were fishing, and we were pretty far out on a sandbar, and there was nowhere to go, and these massive waves started coming in, and I got hit very hard by the first wave, and it dislocated my shoulder and knocked the wind out of me, and held me under forever. And then the second wave hit me and held me under, and I finally tried to get a breath, and the third wave nailed me, and then I just released and gave up. I knew, that was it. And
you thought you were dying?
What's that?
You thought you were dying?
Oh, pretty much I did, yeah. You have to breathe eventually, even if you're underwater.
That's right.
You can only hold it so long. And I went through the tunnel that everybody else sees, but mine was a little different. I saw many, many levels, and I was blasting through them, you might say, and I didn't stop to talk, and ended up in this just brilliant golden light, you might say, which was the most loving, joyous, blissful energy you can imagine. And at that point,
if I can stop you, when you say you went through many levels,
yes,
is there any way to describe what you mean by a level? And you went shooting through them, you say. What do you mean by levels?
Well, they're like dimensions or planes, and you move through them very quickly, and you resonate to the plane. You end up on the plane that matches your consciousness, you might say. So if you have a very low consciousness, you don't go anywhere. If you're filled with all kinds of anger and guilt and unworthiness and fear and a lot of, memories of things you've done to others that you feel guilty about, you really don't go too far up the vibrational continuum. But if you keep going up there and just release it and let everything go, I ended up just focusing on the light as I went, on the golden light, and that's where I ended up. And I had a light body at that point, and I had a greater consciousness and light surrounding me, and I had a conversation with that what I call the
You
source.
had a conversation with the light.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that conversation?
It was quite interesting. The first thing I asked was, how can I stay? Because just the love and the joy and the bliss and security are beyond words when you're in that realm. And it was like a thought-to-thought transmission, and it came back and it said, I never told my children when to come or go. That's free will.
That's free will.
Yeah, and so I had to kind of deprogram some of my programming. And the second thing I asked was, how can I earn the right to stay? And the transmission came back to me and it said, you cannot earn what is given freely and unconditionally. And so I was totally burning off that image, of this wrathful God, the little old man with a beard that judges and condemns everybody. And the last thing I said was, how can I serve? I really want to serve and give something back because you're so grateful after experiencing this energy. And I didn't hear anything for quite a long time. And the last thing I heard was the transmission came back to me and said, what do you want to do? What brings you joy? And I told them I wanted to come back and teach people the true nature of Source and what's really happening in the other planes and dimensions. And then,
all right, so you actually you solicited this. In other words, you wanted to be able to do exactly what you're doing right now, and that's a request you made when you got on the other side. That's
exactly. The last words I heard were "as you wish," and I was back in the body.
So it is written, or something like that. All right, James, hold on. We're coming up to a break. James Gilliland is my guest, and believe me, folks, this is not all foo-foo. Countless numbers of witnesses, many of them working for aerospace firms and that sort of thing, have confirmed what James is saying tonight. So come right back, because we'll be right here. I'm Art Bell from Manila in the Philippine Islands. I am Art Bell, and my guest is James Gilliland. Now, I've got actually mostly favorable fast blast on James so far, but Mike in Auburn, Washington says, your guest had me until he mentioned the near-death experience, and actually that's Scott in Manitoba, Canada. Thank you, Scott. Well, I guess he doesn't have you now, but he has me, and the reason he has me is because I've interviewed any number of people, pilots, aerospace workers, all kinds of people who have been to his ranch and without qualification have said they have seen these vehicles not far away, not little dots of light, but metallic ships that have passed right over them, that sort of thing. And you just don't get that kind of testimony from person after person after person, and not just regular people, although we've had plenty of those, but people involved in aerospace and pilots and those sort of people. You don't get that kind of testimony without it being true. In a moment, James Gilliland will be right back. James Gilliland is my guest. Hi, everybody. I'm Art Bell from Manila in the Philippines, Southeast Asia, other side of the world. Amazing, isn't it? James also is amazing. He had an NDE, a near-death experience. And then following that, he's begun to have these contacts, very, very serious contacts. James, finish up with the NDE. You said you went blasting through any number of what might have been different dimensions. You actually had a talk with the light. You wanted to be able to do what you're doing now. The next thing you knew, I take it, you were back, your eyes opened, medical people were there, or what?
Yeah, I was actually returned to the body, and there was a lifeguard that pulled me out. And what's interesting, he asked me if I was okay, and I said yes, and I was far from okay. But they were so busy pulling everybody else out of the water, and there's a lot of people on the jetty there that were washed off the jetty.
Right.
And so they had their hands full, and I went up, and I got up to the beach and just passed out and woke up in a pool of water, somebody calling my name, and my best friend was actually thrown over the jetty and was hurt pretty badly. And from there I had to go to the hospital and talk to him to keep him from going into shock.
Boy. All right. Following this NDE, when did the first contacts actually begin? How quickly?
Well, what happened is, what I didn't know is I had contacts ever since I was a child, but I didn't know what they were. And I got very involved in the material world and pretty much put all that behind me. And, was doing commercial real estate, actually. I had my own office and people working for me. And then I had the NDE, and I just walked away from everything and went up into the forest. But the contacts have been going on ever since I was a child, but I didn't truly understand the nature of the contacts until after the NDE. They all started becoming very clear.
All right, well, help me understand that. As a child, you say, you went through contacts. What do you mean? In other words, you were talking with somebody, or you were getting information in some way, and you simply did not understand that it was coming from elsewhere, or what?
Yes, my brother and I used to sleep outside all the time. We lived up in Apple Valley, California, in the high desert, and not too far away from Giant Rock, where all that other activity was going on. Mm-hmm. And we used to see the ships all the time, and we just accepted it as kids, that they were UFOs, because they were, making right-angle turns at several thousand miles an hour and zipping back and forth, and the mountains around our area were lighting up with strange orange lights that nobody knew the origin of. So, we pretty much just accepted it, and we were receiving a lot of information as we were growing up, just helping us get through life down here and a lot of the challenges.
All right. You've had how close has been the contact that you've had? Have you had conversations with the beings, any of the beings in these craft? Do you know the nature of these beings? Can you describe them?
I know their names, actually.
You know their names?
And I have seen them face to face. One of the main contacts that we've been working with is a being by the name of Blajee. And she's a Pleiadian. She's about 2 million years ahead of us in the time flow as we know it. And I have a wonderful video of her craft actually coming in. And it's quite an interesting video. I tried to download it and send it in, but for some reason it didn't transfer properly. But the original one is very clear. And it's actually pink in the middle. It's blue on the outside, it's turquoise on the top and bottom, and there's spinning fields of energy on this ship that you can see.
I'm going to tell you, James, if you were telling me these things without the witnesses that you've had come forth, I'd really be cringing right now. Pink with blue and all the rest of it. I mean, crazy stuff, but...
well, that's the hard part for people, because the problem with our information is that we have the video and the witnesses at the time to back up the event. And people will say, well, you faked the video. I said, well, what do you do with the witnesses? And people go, well, they always have a reason to try to discount these things, and we're not really here to prove anything to anybody. We're just making an offering if they want to experience a greater reality and understand that we do live in a much bigger universe than...
in a lot of ways, you're reminding me of Billy Meyer. You're almost a Meyer kind of guy.
Yeah, we tried to work with Billy Meyer, and we've had nothing but problems with that one. So
I know, but what I think is going to happen where you live, this ranch that you keep talking about, where all these sightings are occurring, mm-hmm. It's almost going to turn into a Meyer kind of thing. And I'm not saying that Billy Meyer is leading any kind of little sect or group, but actually that is what occurred there, and it's likely to occur at your ranch. Have you given that any thought?
Actually, I have, and it won't happen here, mainly because I don't really believe in followers. I think everybody needs to make their own personal God connection and spirit connection, and they really need to make this their own experience and do their own research. It's I don't want to create any dependencies whatsoever here, and that's not going to happen, because that's really stealing other people's power, and
well, if you are to prevent it, you're almost going to have to be proactive, James, because it's going to almost occur automatically. In other words, these sightings occurring in one place around one man, that's going to develop into some kind of cult of personality if you don't stop it.
Oh, I'm very adamant about that, and I won't allow that to happen here. It's one of the main things I'm very adamant about. Is I do not want followers. I have my own personal life, and I have my own destiny, and really everybody has their own unique purpose for being here, and they need to go within and find out what that is, and stop following everybody else. because if you're following somebody else, you're not following your own unique purpose.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that. You've obviously had intimate contact with these, whatever they are. Do they have anything to say about what's going on our Earth right now? I mean, all the changes we're going through, the wars that we're having, if they are millions of years ahead of us, surely they've got some comment on what's going on.
They have quite a lot of comments on what's going on, and they've already transcended war and disease, and they have their environments in order, and being millions of years ahead of us, we could definitely learn from these beings, but what we do now is we try to shoot them down and steal the technology and back engineer it, for the war industry. And it's very sad, but a lot of that's changing right now with the works of, Michael Sala and Alfred Webre, and the United Nations is getting involved with a decade of contact, and there's all kinds of bills being written right now to start opening the door for peaceful contact.
You mentioned that we're trying to shoot them down.
Yes.
That's something that Stephen Greer has also talked extensively about. He is absolutely astounded and not at all pleased that we keep apparently shooting at these craft. Do you know how much of a history of shooting at them we have?
Pretty long history. We actually have it on film. We have a beautiful golden ship flying right over the sanctuary here, and it's moving over towards Mount Adams. And right when it gets around the corner towards Mount Adams, there is actually, looked like pulse lasers and a plasma weapon came up from the ground on the other side of the mountain at this craft. And it hit it directly, and all it did was just get a little brighter and keep going. So, one would think if you're going to be doing things like that and you fire everything you have at a ship and nothing happens, maybe in the interest of national security, we should be making friends with these people.
Perhaps so. But, I understand our military. I was in the military, and anything we don't understand, we're liable to take a shot at. Anything that is in our airspace that we can't account for, we can't catch, we're going to try to control. That's the nature of our military. We are a warrior kind of people.
Exactly.
And I'm afraid we might simply just make them angry. Is there any chance of that, or are they so far beyond us in terms of their evolution that they just sort of, smile and say, gee, look, they're doing it again?
We had a Paul Hellyer at the Hawaii conference, which I spoke at, and I loved a lot of what he had to say, and he said, this is just crazy. This Star Wars program is actually designed to try to shoot down a lot of these ET craft and things of that nature. And, he was made it very clear, you have these beings, if they're interstellar or interdimensional, they have technology, millions, if not billions of years ahead of us. And what are we doing trying to shoot these down? It's insane. He was the former defense minister for Canada, and he made it very clear. He actually sat through my presentation and came up afterwards and shook my hand and thanked me so much for showing all the footage and the photographs and giving everybody a bigger understanding about what's going on. But
okay, photographs and video are very good, James. But if you're in intimate contact with aliens, have you yet asked for, James, indisputable proof of some kind, something that you can lay your hands on or lay on a table and say, look, this is extraterrestrial. I received it from so-and-so. Go ahead and test it.
Yeah, we haven't. The problem was, as soon as you have a piece, I think you've already figured that one out, with Art's parts. As soon as you have a piece of a craft, you're in big trouble. And
there's truth in that.
Yeah, so the more physical it becomes, the more trouble you're in, basically. So, and these beings are wise enough to know that. And, we have enough hardware right now to fill a whole football field in all the back engineering and crash retrievals right now. But, if we really want the evidence, all we have to do is, go back to our black projects,
All right. What about the same question that I've asked of Stephen Greer, and we'll get back to Stephen Greer in a moment, and that is, everybody says this, James, if they're here and if they want contact with us, I'm glad they're talking to you, James, but why not the South Lawn of the White House? Why not pop on down to those that really are in control of things and have a talk with leadership, that sort of thing?
Well, personally, I wouldn't even want to go to the south lawn of the White House. I'd rather stay up here on the mountain. And if I were them, I would stay up in their ships right now with our present leadership. There's an old saying, they're looking for intelligent life, and they're looking for people with pure intent and open minds and loving hearts. And
you don't think that our current leadership has that?
Well, they're missing a little integrity there. It's really profit at any expense right now, and it's very sad. If we took the profit out of war, we wouldn't have wars. That would be the end of the story. And it's manufactured, the whole program here.
All right. Have they told you, I'm very interested in this because obviously we have not evolved beyond war on this planet. Current situation in mind, they have evolved beyond war. Did they happen to mention to you, James, how they evolved beyond war?
Well, they found out that the technology, their spirituality and their technology rose at the same level, and that's why they're still with us here today. And parts of their cultures didn't do so well in other events because they actually pretty much destroyed themselves. And every time your technology gets too far ahead of your spirituality, you're headed for big trouble. And their technology is so advanced, they had to figure out a way to create peace because, they could destroy whole planets and things of that nature with the technologies that they possess.
Well, I think we have arrived at about that point. It's not quite a simple matter, but certainly there are a number of nations in the world right now that perhaps combined have the ability to end life on Earth as we know it.
Oh, they do. And the interesting thing about that is they also know that all of that is going to be rendered inactive, that they're not even going to be able to use it. So, they've seen countless demonstrations of silos and installations being shut down and taken over and by these craft, and they've actually knocked a lot of their little rockets out of the sky. So,
I've talked with airmen who were in silos while contact went on, while there was some kind of craft literally over the silo here in the U.S. We had missiles disabled. In the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, they had them actually activated, and they began to count down. They scared the hell out of us. So they related to you that all of this is true, and they have been doing that. Yes.
They've given a very clear message that our technology is pretty barbaric compared to theirs. And, one of the things I've noticed you don't hear much about it, but we've lost a lot of aircraft, that have actually tried to fire on these ships. And as long as they flew alongside them, nothing happened. But as soon as they locked in on them and armed their weapons and hit the switch, the plane just disappeared, in a big ball of flames or whatever. So, they've made it very clear. Most of the time they just take an evasive route, but they have made it very clear that, look, if you're going to start firing on us and if your intent is to kill, we will take care of the situation.
Have they given you any idea at all, James, of when they might make themselves apparent to more than just yourself or Stephen Greer or any of the others who are actively in this field right now? In other words, when they might go public?
What I've seen right now is they tried to work through the agencies in the past, and that didn't bear any fruit. They kept it quiet and just tried to keep on the technology. And now they're working through more of the public. And if people want to see a UFO right now, if you got clear skies, just go out there and start watching, the heavens and see what's going on up there because, it's amazing. They just handed me a note here, the people out doing the sky watch right now.
Yes.
And they're saying they just saw 5 ships, 2 huge ships came over. And one looked like a 7-pointed star, and another one left a huge light trail behind it, but it wasn't a meteor. These things go up. It's really strange. They leave a big, long trail, and then they turn up and go up rather than going down. So
that's amazing. James, how many people are actually there with you right now?
Right now, I haven't been outside, but I know there's at least 3 guests, and there's 2 others, 5, and there's 2 others down the road. There's 7, 8. There's at least 8 people here right now. I don't know how many are actually sitting out there, but I would imagine most of them are probably out there.
Okay.
Actually, they're listening to you right
during
now.
Listen to me. If during one of the breaks you would like to take a moment and bring one of the people in that has been witnessing this as we're doing the show right now,
okay.
I would love to talk with them.
Yeah, they're listening to you right now. I gave them my C Crane radio to go out and listen to the show, so they're out there listening to the show right now. And if they want to come in, I can probably set it up to bring a couple in and put them right on the air here.
All right. Yes, please do that. We're coming up to a break, maybe after the break. In the meantime, humanity is on a kind of a rickety course right now, obviously, whether no matter where you look, whether you look at our human actions or you look at what's going on the planet, it's a pretty rickety course. Do they have any comment on where we're headed and how quickly we're going to get to a tipping point?
Basically, it's very interesting. These beings are intently spiritual, and they say things like, there is a plan, and there will be heaven on earth, and they talk about, the 1,000 years of peace and all of that, and they talk about the process that we're going through to get there, and it's not going to happen overnight, but what we're seeing right now is all the kind of negativity and the past being pushed up so we can heal it. These wars going on over in the Middle East are like these karmic loops that are thousands and thousands of years old that they just keep playing out over and over. And, eventually it's like a spiral that eventually they're going to figure it out and say, okay, we're done with this and we're going to go on to, a different journey. But they've talked a lot about the environment and what's happening with the environment and how it's, how the planets are 4 times brighter right now. The whole solar system is glowing. Its leading edge as it's moving through space right now is 1,000 times brighter, and we're having, galactic cores acting up and sending out huge pulses that are, activating, the sun, and the sun's throwing out the flares and everything. And, they're making it very clear. They said the Earth is overheating rapidly, and that heat has to be released.
All right, James, we're coming up to a break, so hold tight. I think there can be nobody out there right now that would deny that we're going through a heating process. The world, all around us, my side of the world, your side of the world, it's all heating. The storms are getting bigger. We're in the middle of a typhoon right now, and the hurricane season, I guess, is underway in the Western Hemisphere. So, yes, all of this is occurring. I don't think anybody can deny it. James Gilliland is my guest, and we'll be back shortly. That is no joke. Manila, the Philippines, that's where I am, believe it or not, with a Typhoon Glenda specifically, raging outside right now. Pretty weird environment. It's dark enough in here, that's for sure. Here in the Philippines, it is presently about 8 minutes past 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but baby, it's really dark out there. My guest is James Gilliland, and I've asked him to retrieve one of the people that are at his ranch right now, because actually, as we speak, there are craft, any number of craft, passing over his location. So when we get back from break, I'm going to have him attempt to retrieve one of these people and actually speak to them. I'm Art Bell. This is Coast to Coast AM. Once again, James Gilliland. James, Arthur in Blythe, California asks, would you please ask James to give a physical description of the female alien? That's really worth doing. So, James, are you able to do that? Can you tell us about her physically?
Actually, I can. They're exquisitely beautiful. Very.
You sound. Wait a minute. You sound like you might be on a. Are you on some kind of speakerphone now?
No, I'm just a little bit away from it because I have.
Okay, yeah, stay close to the phone.
Everybody came running in to talk to you. The people doing the.
All right, we'll get them on in a second, but I would like to get that myself. What did she look like?
Well, they're exquisitely beautiful. They're very refined, both genetically and spiritually, and you just pretty much fall in love with them as soon as you meet them. They're just the energy exchange is phenomenal.
Well, are they human in appearance? In other words, give me description.
There's different types of beings out there. Some are very humanoid, and they look like us, as I said before, but very refined. And I've seen some that are feline and they're bipedal, and they're very beautiful as well. There's been some very short beings that kind of wear brown robes, and their heads are very much different than ours. They have very large heads.
Have you seen the typical grays, what everybody talks about?
I've had a couple little encounters with them, but I try to steer clear of them. I don't do too well with them for some. I don't like the energy exchange there.
Right. Well, given the choice between a typically described gray and a beautiful female alien, I see your point.
Yeah.
All right. If you've got somebody there, I know you've called somebody in. I really would like to talk to somebody. I mean, it goes to credibility. Certainly on prior shows, we've done this with, as I mentioned earlier, pilots, aerospace workers, that kind of thing, which is just very impressive. But who have you got there with you?
There's 3 people that came in that
3.
2 of them live here, and let me just put this one guy on. I just met this guy coming in, so
okay. All
I
right,
haven't
good.
even met him yet because I've been on the radio.
Good.
But hang on, and I'll put him on the air.
All right.
Yes, Art.
Hi there. Who am I speaking with, please?
Joe from
Joe.
Seattle.
From Seattle. Okay, Joe. Did you just decide to take a trip to the Gilliand ranch, or how did you get there?
No, we've been looking at it for 5 or 6 years, and decided to come down this Saturday afternoon and leave tomorrow and see for ourselves.
Did you call James ahead of time and say, "Hey, buddy, I'd like to come down and see what you're seeing for myself," or how did it?
Yeah, one of our partners is a Lockheed Skunk Works guy that's retired, and he made the contact with him and had communication, and we came down.
All right. Exactly what have you been seeing tonight?
Well, the one that I can absolutely tell you that appeared to the right of Mount Adams and came out of nowhere and...
Describe it.
It came out as a dull light, and then all of a sudden it was more of a white flash. It went off easily 40, 50 miles, went up about 10 degrees in angulation from where we were sitting, and then there was a second craft that caught up to it. I've seen UFOs before in Mexico in the day.
All right, but what
it
you
is
saw
nighttime
tonight,
here.
Yeah, what you're seeing tonight, I guess I had to put it that way. There's no question in your mind. These are not conventional aircraft?
Absolutely. The other guy is also a pilot, and my background is in aviation also, amongst other things. But we're not looking at a green light or a red light off the wingtip. We're not looking at strobes. This was something that we saw for about 45 seconds to a minute, and there was no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It was too fast, too hard of a turn, and it was fairly slow at first, and then accelerated out.
Okay. Is the other gentleman also there?
Yes.
Put him on. Put him on. By all means, put him on. This really helps. I don't know what you can say, folks. This is...
Hi, Art.
Well, a female. Who have I here?
Yes, you're talking to Paris.
Paris.
Yeah,
very nice name.
I live here. I'm part of Team Massetti.
Okay.
I'm James' personal secretary.
Uh-huh.
And it was awesome. Rip and I were sitting out there, and we got to see 2 tonight that were absolutely exquisite. One came... I call vortexed in because there's nothing there, and all of a sudden there'll be a bright flash, and then it took off in an extremely, amazingly fast rate straight across the sky like a razor with this huge tail, and it was just amazing. It took up 2/3 of the sky. We were like all hooting and hollering out there with that one.
Wait,
and then,
you said 2/3 of the sky?
Yeah, that's how far it went with this. From sitting there and looking up, it was so far up in the sky and yet so close in the sense the tail itself, the whole unit, the whole trail was about a half-inch thick. So you consider it's way, way up there. It had to have been an exceptionally large ship. And the tail went literally light speed at two-thirds across the sky. So that was very exquisite because it went very fast in a straight line and left an amazing light tail. And then the one we really all just had a great time with came out, again, vortexed in because there's nothing there, a bright flash, and it started coming at us, and it was in like a hover mode, and it just kept getting larger and larger, and it was coming directly at us, and I got a very strong feeling it wanted to make contact with us, actually come right into the field. But there was another airplane that was coming off from the right of it out of the east, and I think it had made a decision to just literally it got close enough that you could see 7 points of light coming off of it. That's how close it got to us. And it also was quite a large ship compared to some of the things we've seen in the last 2 days. And then it just slowly backed out and then just took off at a right angle at a real clip. And it was very exciting.
Okay, let me pull a Peter Davenport on you. Paris, if you were to hold your hand out as far as it would go and hold up your thumb or even your fist, would it be larger than that?
Yes, the one that was hovering in definitely was larger than my thumb. It was really starting to come in at us, and like I said, it got close enough that we could discern at least 7 points of light coming off of it. And usually you'll just see them and they're far enough up that you don't get to have a lot of discernment with it. And it had a definite intention of coming at us, which I really enjoyed watching as it slowly hovered and came towards us. It was
Paris,
really exciting.
How long have you been actually seeing these craft?
Well, I've been having experiences since I was 6, so I'm kind of like, with James, we have a great time because we've had a lot of contact and a lot of experiences that we really enjoy sharing with the people that come here. And what's really fun, if people are interested in coming to the conference, which is the 18th, 19th, and 20th here in Washington at the Mount Adams Retreat, you'll meet people who are actually having experiences, and then they get to come here and share that and share more experiences, and plus we've got great speakers coming. So it's going to be like the Woodstock of ufology. And
right,
it's a really wonderful time, and we've got a great collective that'll be here this time. So we seem to be getting more and more activity that is very intentional with the people that are coming because of the sincerity and the openness, and because James has such a wonderful relationship with many of these entities, and so he's drawing people like myself and other people who also have been having these relationships for many, many years.
Apparently so. All right, Paris, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Art, and here's James.
Right, thank you. All right, here comes James again. And there is a little bit of physical proof we can talk about. Apparently, James ended up with some kind of burn mark, I've heard, on your chest. Is that true? When did you get that? How did you get it? Is it still there? What's the deal?
It's actually gone now. What happened was I was actually in the bathtub. It's kind of a funny story. And I was in the bathtub meditating, and we had a lot of activity at the ranch for about 10 years, and about 5 years into it, I was trying to figure out what the heck this is all about and what's my connection to these ships, and why are they coming here, and I had a pretty good idea what it was about, but I wanted some physical proof, and I wanted to be face to face with this experience. And the next thing I know, this beam comes right through the wall and hit me in the middle of the chest, and 3 golden balls of energy hit me, and the next thing I know, I was pulled right out of my body onto the ship and having a conversation with one of the beings.
And this left a burn mark on you somehow.
Yeah, I wanted physical proof, that this is a real-time event, that this just isn't an overactive imagination or...
Sure. So did you take photographs?
Yes, I took photographs, and they're on the site at, ESETI.org. I have photographs of the burn mark, and I had it checked out by couple of doctors looked at it, and they said, I've never seen anything like this. And they said, it looks like a radiation burn. And they asked me if I was getting sick or ill, and there were no side effects to it whatsoever. But what was strange about it, it left a kind of a circular burn that kind of morphed into a triangle, and it looked kind of heart-shaped, and then it just went away and left kind of a golden film on my chest.
Boy, that's strange stuff, James. This whole thing is strange. So many witnesses, so many people validating what you say.
Mm-hmm.
That part of it just blows me away. It's apparently really happening. Why? I was going to say, why you, James, which is a very good question, but here's another one for you. If it was just you, I guess we could all say, well, James is having visions, James is having a little problem here or there, but it's everybody who comes to your ranch. They all see these things. So it began with you, and perhaps because of your NDE, but now is visible to anybody who wants to take a look. How come? What changed?
Well, what happened here is it actually didn't begin with me, because if you talk to any of the Native American elders or the fire tower spotters, or even Dr. J. Allen Hynek did investigations out here on the UFO activity, and I'm trying to think of his name, the pilot, Kenneth. It'll come to me, but a long time ago, Kenneth Arnold, when he was flying, he lost sight of the ships when they descended on the western slopes of Mount Adams. So there's a real long history of UFO activity, but they always evaded the people because they didn't have the right consciousness or the real pure intent to make contact with these beings. And the difference is here is that we've risen to the occasion, and so they are working with us, and they want to be filmed, they want to be documented, and they want to assist humanity and the Earth through these times that we're going through. And we need all the assistance we can get right now, as you can see.
Yeah, we sure do. How do you know you're not being fooled? How do you know that these creatures are what they seem to be or what they claim to be, and that they are benign?
Well, one of the things I've had extensive training. I've studied for almost 30 years with yogis and Tibetan lamas, and learned how to heal unseen negative influences, and I've learned how to discern the frequencies or the intent of different beings, and so it's a lot of the training has taught me how to set boundaries and stay in my own self-authority and sense the nature of these beings before any doors are opened, either psychically or physically. So
you think they are benign. You mentioned yourself, James, that there were several varieties, if not many varieties of them. Are they all benign, or should we be wary of some of them?
Well, in the beginning, there were what I would call low-level contacts, and the abduction scenario was real, and that had a lot to do with our own government as well, and some of the back engineering things. But a lot of that is kind of going by the wayside right now, and whatever entities that weren't so benevolent are being pretty much escorted out of the area here, because the benevolent ones are coming in. It's part of our evolutionary process, and they're not allowing the negativity anymore. They're stopping any of the.
Well, yeah, but the abductions continue to go on, and when somebody is taken against their will, and probes are used, or violence of some sort is perpetrated on the person, or even if they're just scared to death, that's kind of negative. I suppose it could be characterized as not negative, and only the way it's being perceived by those who are being abducted. But even the act of taking somebody, of being taken, seems negative.
Well, I agree with that. I understand that there are certain beings out there that are just more like scientists. They're unemotional, but I think when you look at the bigger picture, there's going to be purposeful good out of this whole scenario when it finally unfolds. You know
Dr. David Jacobs, right?
Yes, I do. I know of his work.
He wrote a book called The Threat, James, and he considers there to be a high probability that we're getting fooled, that we're having, and certainly it's got to be possible. I would imagine many times you have asked yourself, at least I hope you have, whether the information you're getting really is accurate, or it's just what they want you to believe.
Well, we have to use logic in this scenario because basically if they wanted to take us out, these ships have been here since the beginning of time that we know it. And they've been observing and watching us. And, why would they wait till now, to come and decide to take over the country and take us out? And, a lot of this information, there's so much disinformation out there. And there are people that are really trying to bring out what they believe to be the truth. But, I know a lot of other researchers that have tried to talk to all these other people that have supposedly been abducted and everything else. And, they have a whole different story. And so, I've interviewed these people, and I said, well, what is it with all this negative abduction stuff? And basically what they said that it was the fear of the person during the experience.
All right.
And that they found out later that there were agreements made. And a lot of it wasn't even ETs. A lot of it had to do with our own government as well and some back.
Okay, so in other words, you do feel that our government has made a deal with some of these aliens, that deal allows these aliens to take people.
They did in the past, and that went really bad, and they know it. And actually, we've had just about every agency here you can imagine checking us out. And basically what they're doing is they're just making sure we're working with the right ones, and versus not connecting with these other negative ETs that we had some encounters with in the past. So it's kind of interesting. I've seen within most of these alphabet agencies is a lot of them. There's some wonderful people working within these agencies, and they want the truth to come out. And we've had them here. They said they're done with hiding this. And
what alphabet agencies have you had there?
Oh, I'd hate to get these guys in trouble, but
don't. I mean, mentioning an agency as opposed to mentioning a person. Just give me a few three-letter.
Yeah, we've had like FBI out here and CIA out here.
FBI and CIA. All right. Hold tight, James. We'll be back in a moment. James Gilliland is my guest. And again, a lot of what he said would be pretty hard to take unless you've been listening carefully and you've heard the witnesses tonight, just a couple who happened to be there, one who certainly just happened to be there, and then, of course, his secretary, talking about what they've seen as we've done the program tonight. But in the past, we've had aerospace engineers, pilots, people who know what they're seeing, and they corroborate what James Gilliland has been saying. So it's certainly worth a listen. And more listening to be done in a moment. From Manila in the Philippines, I'm Art Bell. From Manila in the Philippines, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and that is as true as ever. Here afternoon, where you are probably morning. James Gilliland is my guest. He's describing, in part, what he's been seeing now for a number of years, but in fact, tonight as well. I've got a Fast Blast from Maximus. When you send a Fast Blast, by the way, if you want to. Maximus is in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Says, I work in the Canadian Rockies at night, Art. And guess what? The sky is filled with action. UFOs are definitely real, and we're seeing them here right now. So there you go. James Gilliland has been seeing them for some time, and a whole group of people who have visited James's ranch have been seeing them. Even tonight, we've had a couple of witnesses come forward who have seen what James says is over his head virtually right now, or has been during the program. In a moment, we'll get back. Top of the hour, we'll take calls. I'm Art Bell from Manila, the Philippines. We'll be right back. James, interesting. I'm getting word that your website has gone down like a UFO with a missile through it. Are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't, but I figured it would be. We've had all kinds of problems. Even before I went on the show, I lost my email and everything was going haywire, and we had the phones go down, and you name it. I've been working really hard to get everything back up again.
Okay, well, the website is down. So obviously a lot of people are hearing what we're talking about here, and they want to see some of the videos and photographs that you've taken. Obviously, your website will be back up, given a little bit of time and effort, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So what is up there for those unable to get through right now? When they are able to get through, James, what have you got up there in terms of proof?
Well, I've got quite a few video clips and a lot of photographs. There's so many photographs up there of just all kinds of phenomenon that are happening here. And we have some with beings coming out of plasma fields, and you can see they're definitely not from Earth. Their faces are much, much different.
Let me stop you right there. You've got beings coming out of plasma fields.
Yes,
Okay.
There's like a field of plasma that appears around these ultra-dimensional ones before they appear, and they just seem to walk out of this. It almost looks like a mist, you might say, like a white plasma field. And they just pretty much walk right out of it. It's pretty amazing.
All right. Since you've had quite a bit of communication with them, there is apparently a message for humanity.
Yes.
What is the message?
Well, the bottom line is the same message that they've been giving us is the same message that every master teacher has given us, to every culture. And it's time to start being kind to each other and the planet and living in harmony, with each other and the environment. And they're assisting us to release the past. The main message is they're telling us that we have to stop living in the past and letting the past create our future because, all of these old grudges and wounds and traumas from past experiences are playing out now in our relationships and, in these wars, everything. We're going through an amazing shift of energy, a frequency shift. And what we're seeing is everything coming up to the surface, all the lower frequency energies and that we're holding in our bands that we need to release right now. And we have these fields around our bodies that we hold consciousness in these fields, and we have a lot of dense consciousness that we have to release right now through this process. And
is there any kind of timeline attached to all of this? In other words, straighten up and fly right, or by such and such, something will happen. And, I see it happening all around us. I mean, the planet's in trouble. We're at war. There's got to be there's probably some kind of timeline. There
is. Basically, they're saying that right now, just as our friend there in Canada was talking about, the skies are so active right now with ships because they have to come in closer, and they're doing a lot of work with the planet and trying to divert some of these Earth changes that we're coming into. With we would have already had massive quakes, and we would have had kill shots from the sun that would have done a lot of damage to the Earth. And they've done a lot on our behalf that we don't even know about. They've knocked meteors out of the sky, and NASA tracks these meteors, and all of a sudden they blow into a billion pieces, and they just disappear, and they don't know why. So this has been ongoing for some time.
All right, you mentioned, James, that there were some negative ETs, right? Mm-hmm. Carrie asks the following. He said, you did mention there's negative ETs, and he says he knows he's in contact, the ones you're in contact now with are benevolent because they could have already taken us out, right? Anytime they wanted to. So is there, we're told biblically that there's a war going over humanity between the dark side and the light side. And I wonder if a similar thing is going on with these ETs, the benevolent ones and the ones who are not so benevolent.
Yeah, the ones that are not so benevolent would be like a thimbleful in the ocean. Basically, the universe is overall, or I should say the multiverses are benevolent. And especially when you get into the higher dimensions, because you can't access the higher dimensions without love and compassion and the higher frequencies. So, and these are what you'd call the big guns, they're overseeing everything. And there's a limit to allowing. They allowed some of this to go on, but now they're putting their foot down and they're saying basically no more. And these are some of the little skirmishes that are going on, but ultimately there is a plan for Earth, and it is heaven on Earth, and we are going to move up in frequencies, and eventually there will be world peace, and the restoration of the environment. But right now we're playing out these two spirals. There's an upward spiral where people are going to live according to universal principles that are necessary for a healthy society and environment. And there's a downward spiral where people are going to refuse to cooperate with each other, and they're going to continue to compete and do the power and greed factor and everything. And that's
well, speaking of that, competition, James.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but really within the UFO community itself,
yes,
there's a great deal of divisiveness. I mean,
there is.
The UFO community just sort of tromps on itself all the time. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, actually, everybody has a piece of the puzzle, but for various reasons, they want to act as though they have the whole puzzle, and they create a lot of people around them to support their movement, and we need to cooperate and stop competing, in this scenario, and put everything out on the table, and then we're going to have a bigger idea of this big enigma that we're facing, because there are so many levels to the UFO experience, and nobody has the whole truth. I'm the first one to say I don't have the whole truth, because it is so vast what is going on now. It would be pretty arrogant to think that we would be the know-it-all, because you have the nuts and bolters, and you have the low-level contacts, and you have the abductions, and then you have the black ops and back engineering, and then you have these other benevolent spiritual connections, and
you're kind of in the middle of all of it, aren't you?
Yeah, and some are just observing. They're just kind of watching, like historians or archaeologists or whatever, to see where we're going.
Have you had any luck at all getting Peter Davenport there?
No, never have, and we pretty much gave up on that one.
Mm-hmm.
We've opened the door for him quite a few times to come up and see for himself, and offered the evidence to him. But there are a lot of armchair investigators that won't come up and check out what's going on here or look at the evidence, but they seem to all have an opinion on what's going on here. And Einstein made it pretty clear. He said condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, and people need to come up and do their own investigation.
Well, I do agree with that. So let's take the general public for example. Yes, you're going to have this conference coming up, but if somebody contacts you and says, look, James, I've been listening to you for a while now. I'm beginning to buy into all this because I've heard all the witnesses, but I really would love to see it for myself. How do you respond when you get that? You must get a lot of that.
Oh, we do, and we tell them to come up and see it, You wouldn't believe how many people that come up here. We have, every weekend we have pretty much a full camp. This is a pretty light weekend for us, but we have quite a few people come up here, and especially with these events that we're having, when you have a lot of people together, and the people I've gathered for this conference are all people that are very focused on humanitarian goals and, the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth and educating people. So they're all very service.
I'll say this to you, James. A lot of people have come to your ranch. They have seen these things, and I have yet to get any fast blast or email from anybody who says, hey, I went up to the ranch and it was obviously a bunch of baloney. I've not had one of those, not one. So the people who have actually gone to your ranch are all on your side.
Yeah, we have had a couple. We had like 2 weeks once where nothing was flying. We didn't see anything, and every once in a while we'll have like 3 or 4 days or a week of just no activity at all, and then. Right after that, we could see as many as 50 ships, and so.
Do you have any idea what causes a large amount of activity, and and what is there anything that brings it on? Are you able to do anything to actually bring it on, or are you not at all in control?
Basically, we are not at all in control. These are extremely advanced beings, and you can initiate it. You can request. Them to come in at a certain time, and a lot of times when I'm meditating, I'll get a very clear message to go out and get the cameras going, which is how we got most of this footage. And they'll say, we're going to be there at 10 o'clock, and we've got the cameras up, running and rolling, and they will appear right in the area where they say they're going to appear at the exact time, and I've done this redundantly over and over again, which proves there is a telepathic contact going on. But I see over and over again, if you get a group of sincere people with open minds and loving hearts and pure intent, and they really want to know what's going on in the universe, you're going to attract, these ships in. It's amazing how many come in when you get a real clear group together.
All right, Gail at Burnt Ranch, wherever that is, says, for those who understand, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't, no explanation is possible. You think that's fair?
It is, in a way. It's true. I love the people that come here where I don't have to explain everything to them because most of them already know. But there are people that are just awakening to this, and they're just starting to unfold to a greater reality, and they're asking questions, and I don't mind answering those questions. But most important, I like to bend people inward to get their own information and actually to come and have their own experience, and then they own it. It's theirs.
Well, you do sound humble. I was very concerned about the possibility of a kind of a cult of personality forming around you, but you say you're not really allowing that to occur, and I think that's certainly a good thing. Mm-hmm. Again, be very watchful of that because there are going to be many, many people coming to view these things. And I've got a million questions, but what we're going to do shortly after the break is we're going to allow the audience to ask questions. What kind of questions do you expect? What do most people want to know?
Basically, who are they, why are they here, and where are we going with this?
How about why they're making themselves known to James and friends and witnesses and not our government? Or let me follow that trail for a moment. You did mention a connection with the government a little while ago. Are these aliens still connected, James, to our government? And if so, is the original deal still in place? Do we have stuff we back-engineered? Do we have a craft at Area 51, all the rest of that? What do you know about that?
Oh, we have quite a few different craft, and they're extremely advanced, and we've had them for quite some time. And there has been, a trade, for genetics, technology for genetics, and that's been going on for quite some time. But it's changing now. It's moving into a whole new phase, and they realize that, they made a few mistakes in the past, and now they're ready to move on and do something a little differently. And hopefully, we can align with these spiritually and technologically advanced beings in the interest of national security, because we need their help more than ever right now due to the condition of the planet and the consciousness here.
Who made mistakes? Were you referring to our government or the aliens?
Our government.
Our government. And
yeah.
What kind of mistakes?
Well, they had a choice between two different groups, and one group said they wouldn't give them any technology until they chose peace, and stopped the warring and things of that nature. And the other group said, no, we'll give you the technology. We just want to do a trade for genetics, because this race is actually dying. They actually bred emotions out of their race, and in doing so, they cut themselves off from the life force and their own evolutionary process. So that's why you have the hybrids and a lot of the abduction scenario going on.
All right. Well, that's certainly been the theme of many motion pictures and television shows, that is what they want from us, our genetics, our capacity to love and have emotion, and you're saying that's all really true.
Mm-hmm. From my understanding and what I've been told, it's pretty much true. But, we can actually block this and stop this if we get in touch with our own higher self from within. We can actually set some very firm boundaries and stop any of the negativity.
Uh-huh. Do you consider tampering with our genetics to be negative?
No, I don't. There has been a lot of upbreeding, you might say, and a lot of positive. I believe you're having Mary Rodwell on pretty soon. I'm not sure if it's on your show or during the week, but she understands a lot of this, and she's going to be talking about it, and we're very good friends. I've shown her a lot of our footage, and she just loves it. She couldn't believe how huge these crafts are that are coming.
Well, that's because it goes to motive. Everybody wants to understand why they're here. And if the primary reason they're here is genetics, I don't know.
Well, it's two reasons. The genetics, they're getting to upbreed themselves, because we have the genes of the gods, basically, but they're just inactive and they're not activated. And we can activate them through technology and spiritual practices, and that's what they're here for. And on the other line, they're actually helping us to activate, other DNA lines and, clean up our consciousness here and things of that level. So it's not just to take genetics, they're actually adding, there's higher benevolent groups that are actually upgrading humanity at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Are you now making your living doing this, James? In other words, you hold conferences and you talk to people. Are you able to make a living doing this, or do you make your living otherwise?
Basically, I live very simple, and so I really don't need that much to get by, and I make a living basically through the books. I wrote the books quite a long time ago, and most of the things I've written about are actually unfolding right now, especially with the earth changes and things of that nature. But it's usually through counseling, and the books is where I, keep the food on the table. And
okay.
And that the conference, this is really the first big conference I've pulled off out here. I had a smaller one, which was a Native American gathering where I had a lot of elders come out here and other speakers.
I also, of course, some time ago interviewed a group of Native American elders,
mm-hmm.
Hopi, in fact, and they were pretty negative on some of the earth changes both occurring then and forecast to occur in the short years ahead. That would be right now, and certainly it has been unfolding as they suggested. Yeah. So at this conference, you're going to have, go ahead and plug it a little bit, you're going to have who?
Well, I'm going to have, Dr. Nick Bajic. Yeah, you know him very well.
I do indeed.
And Mihal Ledwith, he was in What the Bleep.
Mm-hmm.
David Sarita, who just helped release the Dan Aykroyd Unplugged video.
Of course.
And Neil Freer, who did Breaking the God Spell.
Right.
And, Michael Sala, with the Exopolitics, and Angela Whitecliffe. They just had the Hawaii conference. They're going to be here. And Alfred Wabre with Exopolitics also is going to be here. And we've got Sonia Kulchar, Janet Collier, Mike Schultz, Steve Marino.
Okay, I'm convinced. Very quickly, if you want to, is there a phone number or some way people can find out about it?
Yes, the best way is to go to the website when it gets back up, which is ECETI, ECETI.org, or they can go to call 509-395-2092.
509-395. What was the rest of it? 2092.
And hopefully we're on Pacific Standard Time, so it'd be good to call us, between 9 and 6 or so.
All right, you've got it. 509-395-2092. Hold on, James. We'll be right back. And when we get back, we're going to allow the audience to ask questions. And if you've been listening carefully and don't have questions by now, well, if you don't have questions, you've not been listening. From the high desert, whoops, you see I did it. From Manila in the Philippines, I'm Art Bell. Yes, I would do well to remember that myself, from Manila, Philippines. I said high desert. I knew I could not get through an entire program without doing that. Hi, everybody. In the middle of Typhoon Glenda over here. We're kind of in a break point right now. We were really getting slammed earlier, but it's lightened up a little bit out there, and we're going to experience rain bands as Typhoon Glenda continues to spread over the Philippines, heading in a northwest direction. Listen, I wanted to mention something else. I've gone through a great deal, as you can imagine, over here in the Philippines, in the process of retirement in the Philippines, and there are many, many, many people who have emailed me asking, how do you do it? What do you do? What's the process? So if I can help anybody out, I'd be more than happy to do so. You may email me with questions about that, or for that matter, anything else. I'm at Art Bell, actually two addresses, artbell@mindspring.com. That's Art Bell, ARTBELL at mindspring.com, or artbell@AOL.com. Either way, I'd be glad to answer and help with whatever I can. In a moment, we're going to begin taking phone calls for an amazing man, James Gilliand, who has had an NDE, and now he sees not only does he see, but those witnesses he has presented and does so on a constant basis have seen UFOs, the real nuts and bolts variety, and he's actually met with ETs. Believe it or not, those who know it's true probably do. Those who have doubts and think it's all a fraud probably are not going to be convinced otherwise. But if you have questions either way for James, that's coming right up. I'm Art Bell. Once again, James Gilliland. James, welcome back to the program. We're about to go to the phones, but Gene in Denver, Colorado asks, Art, would you please ask James if these beings are involved in animal mutilations? And I would add, what about crop circles?
Well, actually, I kind of believe the animal mutilation and probably has something to do with some alien technology and a lot to do with our own government as well.
Our own government.
Yeah, and crop circles are definitely ET. There are some man-made ones, and, there's no doubt about that, but there's no possible way that people could make these elaborate crop circles that have powerful messages in them. And, some of these things are, a quarter mile, half mile long, and they happen in seconds, so it'd take a whole team of surveyors and, with a high degree of geometry and to plan all this whole thing out. And, there's no footsteps or...
Yeah, okay, but in your conversations with some of the aliens, have you actually asked about animal mutilations and crop circles?
Yes, I have. I've asked them, which group is doing that, and that has a lot to do with the low level.
And they tell you our own government is doing the mutilations?
It's kind of a combination thing going on.
Huh. All right. I promised phones, so here they come. Wildcard line, you are on the air with James Gilliland and Art Bell, for that matter. Hi.
Hello.
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 Hello. First, you started the show with saying that SETI had contacts that
I sure did,
that had been denied, and that nobody and I know the program's gotten so good that and you've not. I would love to hear more about that. I would love to hear really a descriptive about that. And upon the of your guest, 5 times I have seen for Mr. Gilliland what I would describe as you said, if you want to see it, go out and look up. Most people in bedroom communities, they sleep all night. They don't. They say, I would give my right arm, as the guest, or as the Fast Blast caller said. I would give my right arm to see it. Mm-hmm. But they don't do it. They don't go out. 5 times in my life, what I've seen is the same thing. I've seen what appears to be not a star, but a dim planet that is almost in geosynchronous orbit that at one point decides it's going to take off.
Okay, well, as the now famous, or is it infamous, show said, seeing is believing. And I have also seen, and once you have seen, it changes your life. And obviously, James, your life has been truly changed. Yeah, going back for a second to this SETI announcement, Stephen Greer is saying that SETI has received signals. Now, it's a very significant announcement. There's no question about it. Do you want to have any further reaction to it? I'll read this again tomorrow night for those who didn't catch it. But it certainly is a significant announcement. First of all, have you talked to Stephen Greer about this at all? I haven't. If I could get Steve Greer tomorrow night early, please, the gods of guests or whoever, get me Stephen Greer, and we'll see what we can find out. In the meantime, do you know any more?
Actually, I haven't. I just heard about it myself, and I was looking into it, and he's not really mentioning who said it, but...
okay, was that prior to my announcement tonight? You had heard about it?
Yes, I've already heard about it. What's interesting is Seth Shustak seems to follow me around wherever I speak, and I was on ABC here locally, and funny thing about it is he turned around and was on the show right after me and saying that, there are no UFOs, and, our spy satellites would know if there was UFOs, and, and he said that we have total surveillance of everything, and, I'm trying to understand how come he has access to all these top-secret spy satellites 24/7, if he is a public agency.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, of course, you've got to look at it from SETI's point of view. SETI is spending a great deal of money utilizing radio telescopes and now, I guess, laser light as well to try and establish contact. And their budget is derived from that effort. So if they're already here, well, you follow me. Yeah. International line, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hello.
Yes. Art, this is Albert and James. I'm listening on KFI 640, and I'm in Mexico.
In Mexico, okay.
Okay, listen. So a week ago, I was sitting here on my computer listening to Coast to Coast, and the neighbor gal and her kids come screaming in my house. I thought somebody got hit by a car. I went outside, and here was this largest. Let me give you a little background. I'm a retired pilot. I got 54 years of flying time as an ATP.
Yes,
and here come the largest object I've ever seen in my life, very low, over our town. Thousands of people have seen this. It was our town. It was more than a mile wide and probably 3 miles long. I've never seen anything so big in my life. It was flying so slow, it was defying all type of aerodynamics. It was impossible for an aircraft to fly that slow. I ran in the house to get my camera, and all I could see was the bottom of this thing. When I got outside, it was so big. It was as large as our town.
Okay,
I talked to some of the people. I talked to some of the people about this because it absolutely blew me away. I have never, ever in my entire life, and I'm an old man, I've never seen anything this big. And talking with some of the Hitos here, they told me about a guy up in the mountains. They've been hiding out from the American government. I've talked to George Norrie about this a while back.
All right, sir. Hold it right there. And let me ask James a little bit about this. James, this is not untypical at all. I mean, people describe this kind of thing. Mexico is a hotspot for these kinds of reports. Hell, they've had UFOs colliding with aircraft. They've had small collisions and many near collisions in Mexico. It's a hotspot for all of this. So, your comments?
Well, Jaime Maussan has some just phenomenal footage right now of probably hundreds, if not, I don't know how many ships. I couldn't even count how many they had flying across the sky there in Mexico. And the footage is impeccable. And these ships are doing everything. They're morphing. They're coming back together as one and going back out. And we have some of the same footage where we have the ships actually landing and morphing from 1 to 3 ships and then back to 1 again on the mountain. And Mexico is an incredible hot spot there. And I think there is so much activity there because they aren't trying to shoot them down.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hello. Hello there. East of the Rockies going once. East of the Rockies going twice. East of the Rockies gone. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
This is James Burton in Oshawa, Ontario.
Right.
All right. I have 2 things to say. One of them is I agree with James about the telepathic part of it because I've experienced it actually right tonight. Before I phoned in, I was outside looking, and a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about ships with, if they wanted to hide themselves from us, actually looking like planes with the red and blue blinkers. And that was a few weeks ago, and tonight I actually saw it because it wasn't moving like a plane. It moved more of a triangle shape and then completely disappeared. And I was wondering if tobacco might somehow affect that telepathic frequency or whatever negatively because I smoke, and when I don't smoke or don't smoke for a long period of time, I'm more...
Are you talking about regular tobacco caller or something else?
Just tobacco.
Just tobacco. Okay, well, that's an unusual question. James?
Actually, tobacco, if you get good organic tobacco, the nicotinic acid helps actually open the brain. The brain actually needs it.
Really?
And that's why you get a lot of the great thinkers. They're all smoking pipes, and things of that nature. But
maybe I'm giving up at the wrong time.
Well, a lot of the problem with most of the cigarettes, it's the additives that they put into them and all the other chemicals, and then you add to that the chemicals in the air, and it's pretty hard on our lungs. But
okay, well, that actually begs another question, James, and that is drugs in general, not just tobacco. There are a lot of people, it's not talked about frequently on the air because I suppose it's not politically correct, but a lot of people have asked if this is not all nuts and bolts in nature, if some of this is paranormal in nature, then are some drugs able to open doors that might not be open otherwise?
Well, they can open doors, but you usually pay a price for that. We have a pretty strict no-drug policy here at the ranch, and because I've seen over and over again that drugs can open people up to areas they're not prepared for, and they can do a lot of damage on the brain, and you need all of your brain cells together, when you're going to go into super consciousness. So you don't want to pay the price by killing off, a lot of the highs people are experiencing is death of the brain cells as they're passing over. They're riding that high. And
all right, but you're not denying there are doors that open. Maybe doors you don't want open, but there are doors.
Yeah, there are doors. There's a lot of ancient ceremonies that people do. They do, peyote, and they do the ayahuasca and things of that nature. But, personally, I don't really recommend it because there are ways of doing it spiritually without the drugs. And once you're trained, you're in control of the experience versus being in the control of the drug.
Gotcha. All right. First-time caller line, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hi.
Hello, this is Troy from Colorado Springs.
Hey, bud.
Right.
Yes, James, I have a question. Since I was about 5 or 6, I've had chips flying above my head. Then as I got older, I had, I guess, I don't want to call it an abduction experience, but a thing with the Greys. I felt like we all became one. I was like looking through their eyes at me and looking through my eyes at them, and felt like I was even kind of one with the plant life and everything. But I've heard that the Greys were not so good, and my experience was quite scary. I don't know if that was just an experience I wasn't used to or what, but what is your opinion about Greys being bad or good? What's your thing on that?
Well, I kind of feel it's a real gray area, not to make a pun, but it seems to be some people have some good experiences about with these, and some people have some not so good experiences, and it's you never know. It's kind of what's going to happen in those experiences. I would rather work with the more humanistic ones that have the love frequency, you might say, or the higher frequencies. It opens you up to a greater experience. So, I tell people if you're not really in control of your other fields and you're not connected, to the higher source and don't know how to maintain your self-authority, it's probably not a good idea, to work in those areas, because I've seen a lot of people being misled and giving erroneous information and being set up by some of the
but see, when I hear you saying this, James, I start to feel a big caution, and that is that not all of them would have the best in mind for us. In other words, I hear you say that, but then I hear you kind of brush over that, and you're kind of in the category of they're all good, and if there's any bad, it's sort of in the past and not now. And I'm not sure that I agree with that completely.
Yeah, I think there are remnants of the negativity still here, but it's being cleaned up, and the presence of the benevolent ones and the frequency of the planet itself is making it. It's coming to a point where they have to either go with the flow or get out of the program here. So.
Okay, well, I hope to heck you're right. Wildcard Line, you're on the air with James Gilliland and Art Bell in Manila. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm big on the gravitational wave theory of Stephen Hawking's, and I'm I hail from here down on the Big Island in Ainaloa, Hawaii, and I'm a contemporary of the astronomers in the Visitor Center in Mauna Kea. And I was always wondering about why those Mexico City photos showed the spacecraft like a raid, like their bottoms were facing out. Is that like the delta configuration where they're actually picking a point in space where they're bending the time-space continuum for an exertion of many light years within, a blink of... I've always been fascinated by that, and the Bob Lazar story of the sports models, too.
Okay. James?
Yeah, having not seen that footage, I'm not sure if I saw that exact footage, so I couldn't really tell you, but I know a lot of them actually, I've seen craft, we actually have them on film where they have a void in front of the craft itself, and it creates a void, and it actually pulls the ship into that void.
That's
and they'll have kind of an orangish colored light on the bottom of them, kind of a yellow-orange light, which is the frequency they have to use to operate here on the planet. But when they get off the planet and start going interstellar, they change frequencies and usually become white or blue when they start making their shift, to blast out of this planet.
How much more of the manner of propulsion do you understand about these craft?
I know a lot of it they're using counter-gravity, and it's not anti-gravity, it's actually counter-gravity, and that propels a ship about 7,000-plus miles an hour versus just floating a craft, and it's fuelless. And that's the main reason why they are a threat to our society, because they have the fuelless technology, and they're a threat to, you might say, the oil industry and people of that nature.
Well, it certainly would be.
Mm-hmm.
Although we could certainly use that technology right now.
Oh, we can, and it's on the planet right now. And I've met people, I've held it in my hand, I've watched it operate, and unfortunately, these people, like we've often heard about, have been threatened. They've had their labs, blown up, and families threatened.
You said you held it in your hand.
Yes, I have.
Describe that.
Well, there's different types of devices. I can't talk too much about it because of all the problems that came with it. Afterwards, I'm lucky to still be here.
Really? But problems that came afterwards, like what?
Well, it's there's certain things that if you push the envelope too far, you disappear. And there'll be kind of an accident or a robbery gone bad where you get snuffed out, or people are just dropping like flies that are in the free energy movement and bringing forward these new technologies. And, we could run cars on water right now. We've had that technology for a long time.
Well, of course, that's okay, James, thank you. We're about to go to break here. That's exactly what Stephen Greer has been saying, that the real impetus behind all of this has to do with some new technology used by, in quotes, them for propulsion, but technology that could be used by us to free ourselves from otherwise what is going to be, cooking ourselves alive, I guess. From Manila in the Philippines, I'm Art Bell. It is indeed a crazy world we live in, isn't it? I mean, the fact that I can do this all the way from Manila here in the Philippines, it really is the planet is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, as well as getting hotter and in more trouble all the time. Carrie from Seattle, Washington says, "Hey, Art, why are these beings so interested in Earth? Are they as equally interested in all the planets with life on them? And for that matter, how rare is intelligent life?" It may be that my guest has an answer to that question after talking with them. In a moment, we will ask. Many, many questions, of course, about consciousness, and that's something I've been concentrating on for a very long time on this program. Tomorrow night Dean Radin is going to be here, and as you know, Dean walked through some of the early experiments with me. We did, in fact, an experiment with Dean, and so that'll be the subject tomorrow night. Very, very important topic. Actually, a topic that probably relates to what we're talking about right now with James Gilliland. James, welcome back.
Oh, great to be back.
All right. That question, why are these beings so interested in us, as in Earth, and why are they not equally interested, or are they, in all the planets that have life on them? And as a final zipper, why, well, is there other life? How rare is intelligent life?
Well, intelligent life is a little rare on this planet, but throughout the universe, it seems to be doing a lot better than we are, concerning how we deal with each other and the planet here. But they're very interested in us because a lot of them are our ancestors, and the Earth was colonized several times, and there was a primitive being that was actually developing here naturally, like a knuckle dragger, that was genetically upgraded, you might say, and Sitchin has talked quite a bit about that. There's a lot of information about that. But basically, we're just an incredible genetic soup down here, both humanity as well as nature and the plant and animal kingdom. There are some other major civilizations that all contributed to this incredible genetic soup that we have here, and it's the biodiversity is like no other planet, and it's something that definitely needs to be preserved and taken care of. So,
what we have is rare in one sense, but life itself is not so rare.
No, there are many different civilizations out there. As I said before, if you look at all the life on just this third dimension and think about all the other dimensions out there, and then just the vastness of this dimension alone, and with the 200 billion suns and the planets around them and the 500 billion galaxies out there, if you do the math, it's astronomical to think.
Otherwise, as was said in a great movie, it'd be a giant waste of space otherwise. First-time caller line, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Jim. Hey, my name's Nick.
Yes, Nick.
I guess it's really cool to call you guys. It's pretty cool.
Okay, you're kind of on a rough cell phone, buddy, so
I'm sorry. Well, my question was, having listened to your program all night and hearing all this stuff, and I think it's pretty amazing. And I got to say, after what James said, it's just pretty much mind-blowing. And I think it's really fascinating. There's other stuff out there, and that this is all boiling and coming down to the head like this. And
okay. Listen, I'm going to pass. You're breaking up on us. I certainly agree with you, Nick. I'm sorry to have to do that, but we just couldn't sustain that connection. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Mike in Utah, and you're coming on real strong on my XM radio.
Excellent.
And great. Yeah, I've got two quick scenarios to run by you and James about what I call the ET or alien agenda. Let's assume that there's different ET races visiting the Earth, as James has said. And in the past, they've advised our different governments with different technologies and so forth. But let's say there's one group advising the U.S. government, a different ET group advising the French and the Germans, and so forth and so on, say the nuclear powers. And they're putting us to work against each other here for their own purposes to implement a one-world government. Whichever human group wins that one-world government, then that ET group, in effect, becomes rulers of the Earth, and the rest of them take off. Now, that's scenario number one. Now, scenario number two is the same thing, same basic premise.
Well, hold on. Scenario number one is interesting enough. Let's stop there and ask.
I got to get number two in here.
All right, well, hold on to number two.
Okay.
Nick, what about number one there? Are they working us against each other, nation against nation, and see who wins?
Well, basically, we've been working ourselves pretty well. I don't really think we need too much outer influence to do that. There are certain influences and different levels of influences going on. But as I said before, a lot of that is being taken care of right now by the higher forces, you might say, or the benevolent ones. And that has been going on in the past. hopefully those type of energies, just due to the vibrational, lifting, the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, are not going to be allowed to function here much longer.
All right, that's a hopeful no, caller. Number 2?
Okay, thanks. And I hope that James is right that the higher energies went out here. Number 2, instead of being military and political and technical advisors, these ET groups, let's call them coaches or managers of sports teams, and the sports teams are the different countries, battling against each other here on Earth, and these ET entities are up in their mothership, casino mothership, embedded in the rings of Saturn, laying bets on which group's going to win down here, and then once we blow ourselves up, they take off and do the same thing somewhere else. So thought that might be interesting for you guys to discuss. Thanks.
I hope that's not true. James?
Yeah, it sounds like an incredible science fiction movie, but no, I don't think that's going to be the scenario. There has been influences. There has been, throughout history, there has been negative encounters all the way back to biblical days where they did pit one group against another, and there were some pretty tyrannical things going on with some very unevolved ETs, you might say. But that scenario is playing itself out, and we're pretty much coming to the end of that, and hopefully that'll all be folded in on itself pretty soon here.
I hope you're right. On the international line, you're on the air with James Gilliland. Where are you calling from, please?
Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Jamaica?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I have a question. My name's Logan. I'll go by that. I have questions about markings on your hands. I'm pretty sure I've been abducted since I was a kid. My question is, I get thoughts and